Subnautica is simply a game about exploring the ocean. This somewhat plain concept is at the center of the experience, and although it may have the potential to turn some players away, the sheer depth and variety on offer is what makes Subnautica truly shine. Now, there is a narrative which in all honesty just feels like it is in place to gently guide you from point to point, but it does have its merits. It takes place in the future where humanity have begun to colonize other planets and sees you taking control of the lone survivor of a mission gone wrong. Stranded on this strange new world, your only option is to survive and ultimately find a way off the planet. The minute-to-minute gameplay sees you gathering resources, constructing tools, and interacting with the diverse wildlife with this goal in mind. Now, it won't be for everyone, but if you're the kind of player that likes to immerse themselves within a world with that sense of exploration well and truly at the forefront, Subnautica is for you. Outer Wilds is a highly unique experience that sees the player assuming the role of an astronaut exploring a solar system that is trapped within a 22-minute time loop. At the end of each loop, a supernova consumes the system and the process starts all over again. By repeating this cycle, the player keeps any knowledge they have gained along the way, which really makes subsequent runs all the more easier. Now, the game primarily centers around unraveling the mystery as to why this loop is in place. By following various clues left behind by an ancient alien race, everything soon starts to come together and make sense. Now, the sheer diversity in locations is what makes Outer Wilds stand out. Each planet you visit has its own distinct flavour and manages to convey a real sense of exploration as you make your way through the adventure. If you're looking for something different, Outer Wilds presents the perfect opportunity, and although it won't be for everyone, in my opinion it is well worth a playthrough. Originally released for the PC way back in 2008, Spelunky is a 2D platformer that will test you to the limit. It is an entirely unforgiving experience and challenges the player to get to grips with the several abilities in place that stand between you and certain death. If you were to fail, you were sent back right to the beginning, but with each level being randomly generated, it never manages to feel samey or stale, as each new run offers up new possibilities. Taking on the role of a spelunker, you have several tools at your disposal in which to interact with the world, from offensive weapons such as a shotgun or freeze ray to exploration-minded items like the compass or the cape. Getting some of the more powerful or helpful items provides a real rush and can have you suddenly going from fearing everything to feeling absolutely unstoppable in a flash. Although the difficulty will have the potential to turn some players off, for those that stick with it, you'll find one of the most rewarding platformers to ever grace the PS4. Hellblade sees players assuming the role of Senua, a Celtic warrior who sets out on a quest to ultimately resurrect her love. The experience is primarily broken down into two separate styles of play. The first sees the player freely controlling Senua and having the ability to interact and explore each environment, with each focusing on several puzzles and the story that is conveyed throughout the journey. And to be fair, it's an incredibly intricate and emotional tale that manages to touch upon some quite serious issues. I won't spoil anything here, as it's best to experience it for yourself. The second aspect of the gameplay is where combat comes into play. Now, it's not the most complex system you'll ever encounter, merely consisting of two types of attacks, a dodge and a parry, but throughout the duration of the adventure, you'll come into possession of extra items and weapons that do see the combat system opening up that bit more. Now, if you're on the lookout for an extremely well-woven, story-driven single-player experience, Hellblade is the perfect choice. Shovel Knight is a simple game at heart. There's not much in the way of story, just pure platforming and combat, which manages to feel satisfying and rewarding in its own right. You take up the role of a knight. The main goal of the experience is to essentially reach the end of each stage, whilst collecting as much treasure as possible thanks to the trusty shovel you possess. Not only can it be used to acquire treasure, it also serves as the main way in which to tackle enemies. Complementing this is a small selection of additional items known as relics, which grant the player the ability to cast long-range projectiles, use special gloves that allow you to punch through walls, and even a locket that can make you invincible. At the end of each level, a boss awaits the player. Now, this aspect is a real highlight of the game and offers up a distinct amount of challenge that will test players to the limit. Any money or treasure you acquire can be used to spend on items, armor, and bonus skills that make gathering as much currency as possible a good idea in order to succeed. If you've yet to sample Shovel Knight or fancy double dipping, the PlayStation 4 version is a great option. Stardew Valley sees the story beginning with the player-created character leaving their life behind in order to move into a farm that was left to them by their recently deceased grandfather. The experience starts off relatively simple, with only the most menial of tasks being available, such as attending to your farm and crops, but it soon opens up into a much more grand adventure that sees you taking part in a whole host of activities, such as meeting a cast of diverse characters, attending festivals, fishing and shopping. The sheer amount of things to do is incredible, and it will soon start to take over your life if you are not careful. The addictive nature of the gameplay is what steals the show. From your daily chores to crafting and finally acquiring a sought after item, you're never at a loss of what to do. Now, it shares much in common with the likes of Harvest Moon or Animal Crossing, with the game allowing the player to express themselves in several ways, mainly through their farm, which can soon grow into an intricate plot of land. Stardew Valley is the perfect game to relax to. The laid-back nature of the overall experience allows the player to take things at their own pace, which results in hours upon hours of playtime, without the overall game getting boring or stale. Dead Cells is a Roguevania title of sorts. There is a huge emphasis upon sharpening your skills and exploring the vast environment, all tied together with tough but fair combat that soon becomes the real star of the show. As the player, you essentially inhabit a dead corpse, with the overall objective being to find your way out of a series of dungeons that make up the adventure. As you explore, you come across a surprisingly diverse set of enemies in which to overcome, as well as weapons and skills that offer up a huge range of options when it comes to taking them on. Central to the overall game is the concept of cells. Most enemies will drop them when defeated, which can then be used to acquire a whole host of power-ups and extra items that will aid along the way. If the player were to die, all of the collected cells will be lost, but permanent upgrades carry over to your next run, which really helps deal with the more trickier moments within the game, especially the boss encounters, which will test even the most proficient of players due to the sheer difficulty on offer. Learning their movements and behavior is key to taking them down, and it soon becomes one of the most memorable aspects of the game. Overall, Dead Cells will test your patience as well as skill, and most importantly, reward you for sticking with it. Hollow Knight is a game that shares several similarities with the likes of Metroid and Castlevania, in that it presents a world that can be entirely explored at the player's will. Known as Metroidvania, there are many shining examples of the genre over the years, and Hollow Knight is clearly one of them. It all starts out relatively simple, by throwing you into a series of hallways with nothing but attacks and the ability to jump, but it soon opens up into a grander experience that offers the player a real sense of freedom. The game is laid out in a way that there are only a certain number of paths the player can take towards a new ability, and once it is obtained, a whole new set of paths open up. It soon becomes one of the most addictive parts of the game. As with each new ability you acquire, it also unlocks new ways in which to take on the several obstacles in your way. If you have yet to sample Hollow Knight, I urge everyone who at least has a passing interest in the genre to try it out for themselves. You will not be disappointed. Celeste is a platformer that will completely test your patience and individual skill to the limit. It is an incredibly frustrating experience that will see the player dying over and over again in order to get to grips with the several mechanics in place that comprise the gameplay as a whole. Now, it sees you taking up the role of a young girl known as Madeline. You are tasked with making your way to the top of a mountain, which is comprised of a generous amount of levels. The gameplay is fluid and responsive, allowing you to experiment with the many abilities that Madeline possesses, the main one being a dash that can be replenished by collecting gems scattered throughout the environment. Making a run and planning your way through is key in order to be able to maintain this ability and avoid the many obstacles blocking the way forward. If you're looking for a challenging but highly rewarding platformer on the PlayStation 4, Celeste has got you covered. Originally released for the PlayStation 3 in 2012, that game company's incredibly moving adventure journey made the move to the PlayStation 4 in 2014. You take control of a hooded figure, with the objective being to reach a mountain in the distance. It sees you crossing a wide variety of vast landscapes and interacting with the environment in order to progress. But what made this experience so special for me was the opportunity of coming across another player who is on the same journey as you are. This happened only a handful of times throughout the adventure, with the only form of communication being that of a musical chime. A sort of trust is built between players as they make their way to the mountain. With an enchanting world and intriguing plot, there is no reason to not give this a go if you haven't already. Well, that does it for today's video. Don't forget to hit subscribe to stay up to date on future videos, and as always, thanks for watching.